So, let me start off by saying this is just a little bit of background on me before you guys get into any of the watchings and the comings and goings of my reactions to the situation involving Bricks and Minifigs and Reckless Ben. I grew up in a military family. I served in the Marine Corps. I was a nuclear security guard. I worked fast food while I was in high school. Right, and I didn't join the Marine Corps because I was retarded. I scored an 88 on my ASVAB, a high GT score, right? But the other my dad was in the Air Force. I have uncles and cousins who were Air Force and Army and Navy. Like we've served throughout all the branches. And the way I'm coming at the my so or and also, I guess a little more background, right? I've been married. I've been around the world. I've been arrested by the FBI. I've been offered a job by the same FBI after that case was dismissed. So I've been arrested before. I've been in jail. I've dealt with the police. I've dealt with federal police. Um, my background in the Marine Corps, I was cyber network operator. Um, they try to make it sound like all fancy, right? So basically, what it was just establishing localized networks, right? So the internet, wasn't really the internet, but that's how the internet exists, is it's the network, right? But localized network, for military access, configuring switches and routers to create server stacks, to host it, online services in the field and stuff like that. I was rasted to become a Marine security guard, where I was taught in Quantico, right up the road from, like, the FBI, CIA, all that fun stuff, right? But we actually get taught by Department of State instructors and Marine instructors while going to McKessage, um, and that's the Marine Corps Embassy Security Group, right? Um, because in that role, we serve as the Marines that you may see in the movies pretty inaccurately a lot of times, right? But we do the only basically the only accurate depiction is that we are the ones who are protecting embassies and consulates out of our armed forces overseas. So I have performed the function of diplomatic security. I have been a civilian employee of the United States Army as a nuclear security guard. Very familiar with a lot of different law enforcement techniques. Very, very familiar with a lot of different things that they're taught because we are taught similarly. And you know, I'm 29. I was alive, but I was young when 9/11 happened. 9/11 happened. I was 4, right? But seemingly I was old enough to understand what happened. And that's just a little bit about my background. This country is my life and blood, right? That my family has put into this country, right? And why the bricks and minifig, right? And need I mind you, right? I got an older sister, an older brother, a younger brother. My younger brother's been in prison. My older brother's been in prison, right? For serious stuff. My older brother just got out. My siblings have always been like the fuck the police kind of people. I have not been, right? I've always been everybody gets a fair shake. You fuck up, and you atone for it, right? You're held accountable. And the reason why this bricks and minifigs thing, and also like why it's such a big deal to me, because I mean, also side tangent real quick. I'm not a fuck business kind of people. I'm not a fuck capitalism kind of guy, right? I'm not, right? Everything has its ups and downs. I'm not like, oh, just by virtue of someone being wealthy or powerful or something like that, they're evil. And how do I know that I'm correct? And some of y'all are going to disagree with me. Obviously, I already imagine, because this is turning into a fuck the police are corrupt kind of thing. I know there's going to be a lot of y'all who disagree with that. But look at the response from the Patreon CEO. That company's worth $2.5 billion, and he told another company that's actually that is also wealthy, right? Who's acting maliciously, to fuck off, and if they have a problem with it, sue them, right? Because there's always a bigger fish. And but why is this scandal, like, why am I talking about it, right? I don't usually talk about this. We cover news, we do gaming, you know, Some people ask me for my perspective sometimes as from when I was a Marine or how I'd view it. You know, I spent 3 years just sitting there constantly on post studying people, their body language, you know, their movements, their speech, the way they talk, how they talk. Like, and I'm talking about like social cues, things they say, just completely taught to be an information gatherer, right? Because that's a big function you have to play as a security professional, right? Which is the same thing as law enforcement. They provide security through enforcing the law, right? I'm not one. I'm also not one of those guys where like they're supposed to protect and serve the community. Yeah, well they don't protect and serve the community by responding to an autistic kid having a nonverbal tantrum, right? That's not their fucking job. They protect the community by enforcing the laws that are created by our respective legislative branches, which is typically on average what we vote for, right? And they enforce those laws because those are the laws that we've agreed upon within our social framework of living in society, and that's how they protect us. Is they make sure everybody's playing by the same rules. Everybody. I've given to this country. My family has given to this country. I've been on both sides of it. I've never been a fuck law enforcement kind of person. And I'll tell you what, this bricks and minifigs fucking scandal. Sorry, I think I'm getting sick. I got bit by maybe I got bit by one of those Google fucking mosquitoes that they're releasing. Cause you know I got bit by a mosquito the other day and now I'm kind of starting to feel sick. But the best part is what's up, Phelan? What's up, girl? So this scandal has really, really severely altered my perspective on policing. Right? I know there's corruption. Right? I'm not retarded. Some of y'all might get offended by that. I don't really care. Right? I understand corruption exists. It's always going to exist. It always has existed. It's nothing new. Right? But I don't know how to look at it any other way. There is no other way. There is none, right? Because it's either malicious corruption or it is such an egregious level of incompetence. They are inept. At any point in time in this situation, a single police officer who responded to a single one of the calls involving Reckless Ben and Bricks and Minifigs could have ended the entire debacle by doing just preliminary investigative work and asking appropriate questions. That's it. That's all they fucking had to do. And this would have never happened. Furthermore, this would have never happened if the suckers of Bricks and Minifigs, right? Brandon Best, Joshua Johnson, and Amen, whatever his last name is, the CEO, if they weren't such fucking pieces of shit lying about it, constantly lying about it. And again, right? I was a sergeant in the United States Marine Corps. You know, and you know why? You know what I love about the Marine Corps? You don't get a fucking excuse. They don't give a fuck what rank you are. They don't give a fuck how long you've served. You don't get an excuse. All you get to do is succeed. And if you don't succeed, you fucking fail and you are accountable for those failures. And in my humble opinion, that is the best way to lead and that is the best way to teach people to lead. So there's two options for Bricks and Minifigs, right? They are maliciously corrupt, engaging in targeted corruption, right? Where they came up with the plan to steal the Legos or pretend like they lost the Legos, still theft of the Legos, right? Doesn't matter which way you cut it. Or they are so grossly derelict in their duties, so grossly negligent in any aspects of leading or being at the top of an organization in any way, they should have never been allowed to do it. They should not be allowed to have that power over anybody. They should not be in charge of anybody. All three of them, right? As the front runners of this scandal, they do not deserve anything more than to flip my fucking burgers. They don't deserve thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands, or millions of dollars. They don't deserve nice, lavish homes and nice things. They don't deserve to be fat, right? That's how wealthy they are. They are fat. Okay? They don't deserve it. And so this is just kind of, I want y'all to get a little bit of an intro so you can understand what you're going to see when I react. Corruption has no place in our society. It will always exist, but it has no place in our society. And if I, right, am an individual who believes, yes, people who govern us have authority over us, they have power over us, but I believe they, right, our authority and power over them is accountability. And this is single-handedly, right? I was a shift manager working for Calichi's here in New Mexico, right? I was a sergeant in the Marine Corps. I didn't stay at my nuclear security job long enough to actually ascend the ladder because the nepotism, the nepotism there, the ineptness there was so overwhelming. I was just like, fuck this, I am done, right? I'm practically checked out on society because I can't do this shit anymore with it's either corruption or the stupidity is so great, right? That it's seemingly corruption, right? Occam's razor and Hanlon's razor, right? So those are the fucking choices. I don't want either of those fucking choices, right? So you're going to see things where, I'm calling for accountability of those police officers. And probably the only police officer who doesn't deserve to be fucking strung up and held accountable is actually that young American Fork, like, Utah fucking police officer, the young one who's constantly kind of like questioning clearly his superiors about their decisions, and whether that's new, that's because he's new, right, or relatively new, or because like he's like, what the fuck, like why would we do that? It doesn't make any sense because he genuinely has a correct moral compass. It doesn't really matter, right? I mean, it does kind of matter, but he's probably the only one who shouldn't be held accountable. And because I don't think he is acting maliciously. I think he's acting through a perspective of fearful for his job or social ostracization. And I'll be honest with y'all, as a former Marine, I don't even think that's a valid excuse. Because remember what I told you. In the Marine Corps, there is no excuse. Your failures are your own. And if he feels that his fellow police officers are engaging in misconduct, it is up to him to call it out. Informally, but especially formally, right? The social ostracization be damned, the negative repercussions be damned, right? You stand up for what is right. All of the other police officers, both of the Salem Kaiser Police Department and the American Fork Police Department, involved in these incidents involving Reckless Ben and BricksandMinifigs, they need to be brought to justice. And because they were entrusted with sacred positions of authority and power, they need to be held, police officers need to be held at a higher standard, right? I'm not saying that they can't have immunity and stuff like that. I'm saying whenever there is actual fucked up shit happening, we need to objectively look at it and we need to hold them accountable more severely, right? So like if a person robs a store, right, we punish them. If a police officer robs a store, we punish them plus, right? Because they have authority. They have power. The people, right? We, the people, entrusted them with that authority and power, and their violation of that authority and power has violated the public's trust. I'm not doing this to be malicious. I'm doing this for the preservation of society, right? And I will always do it for the preservation of society. Because if you are in a position of authority and you violate the public's trust and there is no accountability, you eventually get in. And guys, again, I usually talk politics. I don't know anything about fucking Legos or bricks and minifigs. I'm completely new to this. But you want to know something? I will talk about corruption. And I will talk about blatant corruption. And I will help drag corrupt people through whatever the fuck I have to in order for them to stand trial or for society to seek justice. Okay? When people stop believing in society, when they stop believing in the forces that we have given power to have authority and govern us, people start taking matters into their own hands. You have wanton vigilante justice all over the place. But that's what happens when people feel like there is no accountability and there will be no justice. This is why governmental officials in any capacity must be held to a higher standard. When they get in trouble, the punishment must be more severe. It must be so severe. And if that makes you too afraid to do your job, then you don't ever do that job. You avoid it like the fucking plague. All right? So that's a little bit about my background. I am going to be dropping the other videos. Make sure you watch this first before you watch the other videos. And with that being said, thank you all so much for the support. Thank you so much for being here. And just remember, truth, reality, and common sense. If you have one, you will have all three.